Hello, welcome back. This is Quinn the GM here, new Mike Who This, and as I likely explained in an intro that I've yet to record, today I'm going to be ranking A Song of Ice and Fire Targaryens. I've done this with kings before, but I've not done this with all individuals, and the Targaryens have a bunch of individuals who aren't kings, who I'd like to talk about a little bit. There are a fair few of them that I don't really know of, so they might not get as much as others, but I do have a fair amount of opinions that I'm excited to share. This list will be entirely my opinion, which means it is concrete fact, and it's also your opinion now, so enjoy it. Lists here in the tiers are iconic, great, good, meh, I don't know her, bad, and disgusting, which I thought were a pretty good set of tiers. Most of these were originally in the tier list as well, and I will link to this same tier list in the description. I'd love to hear your opinion as well. Who's your favorite Targaryen? So, to start out here with a bunch that I don't really know much of, Aenar Targaryen is the person who caused the Targaryens to flee Valyria, and that person who settled them on Dragonstone. We think he's a dragon dreamer, but we really don't know much about him other than that. I'll put him in good for saving the dynasty, but he's not going to go much further. Lords Daemon and Aerion, however, we know pretty much nothing about other than them being Lords of Dragonstone before Aegon the Conqueror. They do have pretty cool names, but that's about it. Aegon the Conqueror, on the other hand, we do know a good deal about. I'm putting him probably at the top of great tier, I think. That seems fitting, because I think he is a great ruler. I think that's the thing that impresses me the most about him. He doesn't just conquer the continent, as he probably should be able to with dragons, but he's able to hold the realm together for those 37 years that he ruled. And that's really impressive to me. Like, Robert Baratheon does not hold the realm together for very long. Aegon does. He is both a warlord and an actual lord. He's pretty impressive in that way. Speaking of holding the realm together, we have Visenya, who I'm going to put in good above Aenar. I don't like her quite as much as I like Aegon, because she has some pretty dark actions in the story that I'm not a huge fan of. But overall, she does a great job of holding the realm together through Aegon's rule and through the kind of tumultuous rule of her nephew and her son until she dies and her son goes completely haywire. Rhaenys I like quite a bit. I'm going to put Rhaenys just above Visenya also in good, because she just doesn't live long enough to really get as much of an idea as to who she is, what she's doing, as compared to some of these other Targaryens. However, she is described in very good terms. She does a lot during the war, and she was very beloved by Aegon, which is nice. Aenys the First, I'm debating between meh and bad. I think bad. I don't think he's a good enough ruler to justify being in meh. This isn't based entirely on ruling abilities. This is just based on my general opinion. But Aenys is a bad enough king for me to not want to rate him any higher than bad. Speaking of bad, I'm putting Maegor in the same tier just below Aenys, because I like Aenys a little bit more. I'd be okay with like hanging out with Aenys. He seems pretty chill. Maegor is not very chill. He did some undoubtedly great things for the dynasty that I'm sure I'm going to get comments about on this video, and he pretty much ensured its survival, but as a person and as somebody in terms of likability or just how much I care for the character, I'm not a huge Maegor fan in general. Maybe, do I put him above Aerys? He is a more interesting character than Aenys, not Aenys, excuse me. I'll put Maegor above Aenys just because I like him a little bit more. Dreamfyre Rhaena is great. I'm putting her up there next to Aegon. Super interesting character, ties to Harrenhal. She's got a super interesting dragon that then plays a role in the later Dance of the Dragons. I don't know, she just has a really interesting life, and it's great to be able to see it kind of through the progression of the dynasty, as she is someone who lives for quite a while and sees a lot of change in her time. Aegon the Uncrowned is going to be the first addition to the meh tier, just because, again, we don't know a ton about him. He seems like he would have been a pretty good ruler, but he gets killed by Maegor. Thanks, Maegor. And he's going to get just meh for that, you know. Viserys, son of Aenys, unfortunately, I think it has to be I don't know her. We know he died. We know he was tortured to death by Maegor. Thanks, Maegor. But overall, I don't think we really know enough about him to judge either way. I do like Viserys's generally, but I don't want to cast judgment on a child who died. This one is Daenys Targaryen. So we're a little out of order here. Daenys the Dreamer is the reason that they came to Westeros. What was the guy's name? Aenar is the one who took them there. Daenys is the one who had the dreams. I'm going to put her just above Aenar because she's the one who actually caused that. Jaehaerys I, the Conciliator, is instantly our first addition to the iconic tier. He is one of the best rulers in Targaryen history. I don't think he's the best, but I am in the vast minority there, and overall, I very much appreciate all that he did. And he did roads. He built a lot of roads, and a lot of people love him for that, and I can't forget to mention that. Good Queen Alysanne immediately surpasses her husband. She is the top of iconic tier right now. She is, I think, probably the most morally good Targaryen we get in the story. I could be wrong on that. I'm sure people will have their opinions as well. But I think that good Queen Alysanne can be kind of credited for a lot of the good that Jaehaerys did during his reign, which I very much appreciated. And if not for some of his counselors, he might not have been nearly as good of a king. She also has a lot of interesting dealings with the North and influence there, and she has some great accomplishments under her suggestions, such as removing the right to the first night, which is a very barbaric custom that the Seven Kingdoms once held. So yeah, she did very good, and she's, at the moment, the best Targaryen on this list by a pretty wide margin. We got some other kids here. We have Arya and Rhaena, the two daughters of Dreamfyre Rhaena, I believe. I'm going to put Arya in meh as well, but above Aegon the Uncrowned. I like her personality as it's described, and stealing Balerion is a pretty neat move, but overall, she kind of horrifies me because of her death, and I don't want to think about that anymore. Rhaena, we don't really know much about. She's going to go here, just below Viserys, because she wasn't tortured to death, and I have less sympathy for her because of that. Let's see. Daenerys, daughter of Jaehaerys. She died pretty young, didn't she? I'm blanking. I have a whole video ranking Jaehaerys' kids. I think that is probably my favorite thumbnail I've ever made, but I like the first Daenerys. I think I'll put her bottom of good tier. Aemon I'll also put pretty high. I'll put Aemon, I'd say not top of good tier, just under Visenya. I think that he was great. He could have been a great king, but overall, again, we don't know much about him or his accomplishments. We know he had a really cool daughter, and that he rode, I think Vhagar it was. No, it was Balon who rode Vhagar. I think he rode Caraxes, if I recall. Or I think. I don't know. I'm getting my dragons mixed up. This isn't a dragon tier list. This is a dragon people tier list. And speaking of Balon, he's right here. I'm putting Balon the Brave up in great tier. I really like Balon. He's got some great nicknames. He's got some great stories about his youth. And again, he would have been a great king, much better than his son was. But yeah, I love him. Alyssa's also going to go pretty high. I'm going to put her right next to Aemon. Really fun stories about her as well, and how much she loved her husband, Baelon, and how much she loved riding dragons, her dragon Maelys, the Red Queen, which is then ridden by her niece, which we'll get to in a minute. But yeah, Alyssa's great. And she's also got a pretty interesting look for a Targaryen. She has the two different color eyes, dichromial something. I feel like that's what it's named, but I don't know. Maegor, I think, is the kid of Jaehaerys's that my opinion has improved the most since I made that video. She's going into the bottom of great tier. She's got big child of divorce energy, and she's pretty much the reason that these two stay together for as long as they do, and I appreciate that a lot, Maegor. She does a great job. And she ends up dying, trying to cure kids' grayscale, which is pretty much as noble of a death as one could ask for in this world. Going on here, this person doesn't have a label. Oh, I see the Maester chain. It's Vagon. It's Vagon. I got it. Vagon is going between these two as well because he's pretty great. He abandons his family to be a Maester. I really hope he appears in House of the Dragon Season 2. I think he very well could, especially if we are introduced to Old Town through Daeron's perspective. And I think that he could be a really interesting influence on that conflict as a whole. Gaemon the Glorious is another kind of mythological figure, somebody who had been in House Targaryen a long time ago, but we really don't know a ton about. He's going to go slightly above these two because I like his name a little bit more. Baela Targaryen, I think, is this the mother of... No, I'm getting mixed up. I don't know who Baela is, so I'm putting her in this tier as well. That's fine. I'm sure I'll be corrected on who Baela is. And I actually have a video on the kids of Jaehaerys, which I'm pretty sure she is. Sarah is here. I controversially put her at the top of my ranking of Jaehaerys' kids. She's going pretty high here too. Sure, she's not a great person, but the entertainment value, that's what matters, people. I know I said the opposite about Maegor, but in Sarah's case, it's girl bossing, and I love it. Visera, unfortunately, killed by a horse. I assume it was Tyrek in the past, but Visera's going to go in meh. She wasn't great from what I remember of her. Gale, very sad. Her death was very tragic, and she's going to go in good because I think she was a good person, and overall, I don't know, did not deserve to die as she did. Rhaenys, the queen who never was, loved her in House of the Dragon. Her and Corlys were, I think, my two favorite characters in the show, and I'm pumped to see more of her in Season 2. I wish they'd stuck with her having the Baratheon hair in the show. I think that'd be really neat and a good way to show that, yes, it's possible for Targaryens to have dark hair and that Rhaenyra's kids might not be bastards, but the show did very much run away with, oh, they're bastards. She's going to go in great. Does she deserve to be an iconic? She's pretty iconic. Think about her death, too, which I'm not going to spoil for House of the Dragon, people. I'm going to put her above... I'm going to put her top of great tier. I'm top of great tier, not quite iconic tier. Viserys I is going in bad, I'd say. Bad above Maegor, because I think his heart's in the right place, but I don't think any of the rest of him is in the right place at all, because he very much causes a war, as I'm sure you all know. And I'm ranking this book character, not the show character. Show Viserys I'd probably put in meh or good, just because of how much I liked him. But book Viserys is really, unfortunately, unlucky and not great at ruling. The rogue prince made of darkness and light in equal parts, as Martin has so often said. I'm going to put him in good. He's a fascinating character. Bottom of good, because he also does some very questionable things that rhyme with chud and bleeze, which we'll see in House of the Dragon Season 2. But he's still a very interesting character, and his death is probably the most iconic thing on this list. Queen Rhaenyra, I'm going to put about, not there, I think, just above Daemon. I was never a huge Rhaenyra fan in the books. I think she would have been a pretty good ruler uncontested, but I don't think she handled the war in a great way, in addition to not really contributing to it, despite being a dragon rider, though it is understandable that a queen would want to take kind of a back seat to protect herself, though Aegon did the opposite and took the front line, though also Aegon very much regretted that. Speaking of, Aegon II is going... is it going to be bad, or is it going to be meh? It's going to be bad. Aegon I like less than Viserys. He's more actively harmful. He has one good line, which is if they search the seven hells, mayhaps, which I will give no context on. But other than that, he's got a cool dragon. He's a usurper, though, so not great. Helaena Targaryen, the show has given me great fondness for her as well. But in terms of the book, we really don't know much about her other than her being this tragic figure. I'm going to put her in good as well, but towards the bottom. I don't know who they mean by Lord Aegon. I think this might be like a Targaryen dragon lord of the past, or they're talking about baby Aegon that was Jaehaerys' kid. Regardless, they're going in IDK error. Aemond, not the rogue prince, that's Daemon. That was a genuine slip up on my part. He's going pretty high just for the aesthetic alone. I'm going to put him right next to Daemon, because Rhaenyra and Daemon don't need to be together, but these two do. Man, look at that sapphire eye in that. I love that art. I am going to link to this in the description so everybody can access it as well. Daeron is also going to go pretty high. I love Daeron the Daring. He's going to go above Daenys the Dreamer, certainly above Alyssa, above Aemon. Not above, maybe above those two queens. I'm going to put Daeron in the top of good tier. I really like Daeron. He would have been a good king had he survived the war, and I really wish he had survived the war. He also owns my favorite dragon, which helps. Baela and Rhaena Targaryen, the twin daughters of Daemon Targaryen. I'd say both are pretty good. I'd say above average good. I'm going to put them next to each other because, if I'm being honest, it's been a minute since I've read Fire and Blood, and I forget which of them did which things, but they both do a lot of very cool things over the time that we see them in Fire and Blood. And I'm excited to see a lot more of them in the future of House of the Dragon, as is the case with like half the characters I've just listed. Aegon III, the Dragon Main, is going high. He's going to great. Is he better than Aegon the Conqueror? I don't know. I like him more than Aegon the Conqueror, and that's what this list is based on. So yes, he's going above Aegon the Conqueror. He's a really good king. He's mopey, which is his main flaw, but if you'd seen what he'd seen, I'm sure you would be too. And yeah, he does a good job. Policy of, full bellies and dancing bears, I believe. He adopted Gaiman's policy there, which, God, I wish Gaiman was on this list. Gaiman would be top of S tier. But speaking of top of S tier, top of iconic, Viserys II. These two are very close together for me. They're my two favorite Targaryens. This order might change later on in the list. Give me a minute. I need to mull on it a little bit. I realize I have nobody in disgusting tier. Maybe I should rethink this. I'm going to put... Yeah, Aegon II and Maegor are going to move down to disgusting, I think. Aenys is going to stay in bad, though. Sorry, kids of Aegon the Second. I don't really know much about you other than you were killed tragically, so you're all going to go just about here. Daeron the Young Dragon's an interesting case. I've never really liked him all that much. His wars in Dorne just struck me as kind of unnecessary, especially given the fact that the Targaryen dynasty had just been through a lot of other wars with the Dance of the Dragons in the not-so-distant past. He did do a good job at those wars, but I don't know. I've never had quite the soft spot for the Young Dragon. I'm still going to put him... I'll put him at the top of meh. That might be a controversial placement, but we shall see. Lady Helaena is pretty high as well. I like her a lot. I'm going to put it... Oh, where'd she go? I'm going to put her in good, just below Daemon. That's pretty good. Excellent. Baelor the Blessed is going to go right next to his brother, Daeron I. Baelor, I think, is very similar to Daeron, in my opinion. I think he focused a lot on issues that might not have been the most relevant. I think that walking to Dorne and getting bitten by 6 snakes was a very bad idea in terms of his mental capacity. But he did do some good things for the small folk. I gotta give him that. I'm gonna put him bottom of good tier then, because I think I do like him more than I like Daeron. Next up, Daena and Rhaena. We're getting into several of the kids during this era who I'm not entirely aware of at this point, because Fire and Blood 2 is not out, and we don't have a ton of information on this specific era of Targaryen history. They're going to go in the kids I don't know much about section of the IDK tier, unfortunately. I hope to learn much more about them in the future, though. Aegon IV, bottom of disgusting tier. He is quite literally the worst. I think that Aerys II is probably worse for the dynasty, but I think that Aegon IV is much worse as a person. So that's why he's going bottom of disgusting tier for now. Aegon the Dragonknight, on the other hand, is going pretty high up. I've talked about him a lot in the past month, and I didn't intend to. But I'm going to put him just below the queens Visenya and Rhaenys, because I like him a lot. He does a great job defending his sister and defending several kings, many of which were trying to actively get themselves killed, and he is the son of the best character on this list, which does help. I'm giving him nepotism baby status. Same with Naerys. I like Naerys a lot. We admittedly know less about her than we do about her brothers, but in the case of Aegon IV, that's for the better. I'm putting her above Baelor the Blessed here. She's good. She's not great. Daeron the Good I like a lot. We get to know his era a bit through the Dunk and Egg stories, and it seems largely like a time of peace. I'm going to put him in great. I'm going to put him above Baelon, I think. Above Sarah, too. Sorry, Sarah. Because I think he's a good king, and he does a good job dealing with the first Blackfyre Rebellion or 2. Which I don't think the Blackfyres are on this list. No, they're not. And now we're getting into his kids. Daenerys Targaryen gets a lot of points for bringing Dorne into the fold peacefully. It was somebody else who arranged it, but I still think she deserves credit for being the one to marry into it. There is some debate on who exactly arranged it. It was arranged under the crown of, I believe, Baelor I. However, the realm at that point was very much being ruled by Viserys II, at least diplomatically. As this union with Dorne had nothing to do with the faith, I tend to credit Viserys II with uniting Dorne with the rest of the realm. Baelor Breakspear is a great character, and I'm a big fan of him. He's going to go right next to Daeron the Good, I think. Maybe just above Daeron the Good, because we see him in the first Dunk and Egg book. We actually see his demise. And he's a fascinating character, and I wish he'd been king. I think if I could make one person on this list who wasn't king, it would be Baelor Breakspear. Lord Maegor, or Maegon, I don't know. I can't see the end of that. Is also going to go in. I don't know her. I do like her name better than his name better than just Aegon, though. Aerys I is the king of meh. I am putting him directly in the middle of meh because that's exactly how I feel about him. I've forgotten him in, I think, 4 separate videos where I should have probably mentioned him, and I do not regret that in the slightest. Aerys I does not deserve it. Let's see. Rhaegal Targaryen. I believe this is one of Baelor Breakspear's kids. We don't really know much about him, so he's going to go in the I don't know her tier. Maegor Targaryen, however, we do know a lot about. He becomes king later. I really like his sense of duty. I've got a whole video on him specifically, and I think he very much acts as a parallel to Stannis in the main series, who I also quite like. I'm going to put Maegor, again, just under Visenya here, because I like him a lot. I think he does a lot of great things as a king, too, and he does get killed by the Peaks, which I would give him bonus points for, because it's funny. Valar Targaryen is up next. We again see him in the Dunk and Egg books pretty briefly. He's not the one with dragon dreams, I believe, but he was pretty interesting when we actually got to know him. I'm going to put him in meh because we didn't get to know him very well, and he dies of a plague pretty quickly as compared to a lot of the other characters on this list. We're already pretty much not in the home stretch, but we're getting further than I thought. Just a quick list review. Viserys II, Good Queen Alysanne. I'm going to switch them for now. I might change that back. It's hard to beat Alysanne, man. Alysanne's just the best. Sorry about that, Viserys, but I still love you. Mataris, I think, is another kid from this era who we really don't know much about. Same with Aelor and Alora. Aelor and Alora are twins, I believe. They might be twins of either of Baelor or Aenys or one of their siblings, but they die in that plague that kills everybody off. I believe same with Daenora, though, again, she might be someone else. Daeron the Drunken I like quite a bit. He's a dragon dreamer, which you learned from Dunk and Egg, and I'm putting him in good because I think he's good. It's really interesting to have the idea that he was driven to drink by these dreams that kind of torment him and tell him the future. And that would have been really interesting to see in a king, because he was in line for the throne at some point. I believe he's the son of Maegor, but I could be incorrect on that. He's, I think, Egg's older brother. I am correct on that, because I remember that from Dunk and Egg. Aerion Brightflame. Interesting one. Instinctually, he is going in the bad tier. I'm going to put him top of bad, though, for style points. I think he's pretty iconic overall. Though I do think it's interesting just in a meta history sense how the Bright Flames were likely the kind of precursors to the Blackfires, given that they're mentioned a lot more in the earlier books, and it seems like Martin wanted some cadet Targaryen branch in order to serve as a rival for Daenerys at some point in the story. And I think it's pretty interesting to examine him in that light. But overall, bad person, broke up Puppet Master's fingers, and that was very mean of him. Lord Aerys, I think we're still getting into the ancient ones that we know from the old family tree. Maester Aemon is going into iconic tier. He's above Jaehaerys for me. Fascinating character, one of the best presences at the wall throughout the entirety of all the books. Love Maester Aemon. Aegon the Unlikely is also pretty great. I'm going to put him in great. I'm going to put him just below Daeron the Good, because I think he does more than Daeron does, but I think that the ending of his rule is enough to kind of bring it down a little bit, as his kids were completely out of control and very much messed up the succession of the dynasty, and the disaster at Summerhall has to be remembered, and I just think it's very unfortunate. Also, that disaster that he probably caused did kill Dunk, which I do hold against him. But it is very fun to get to know Egg in these books, and he's probably one of the most well-fleshed-out characters on this list via those mediums. Rhae. That's a very simple name for a Targaryen. I like it. She's going to get bonus points for that. Daela, daughter of Maegor. Also going to go, and I don't know her. This tier is getting bigger and bigger, but there's still a lot more that I know than I don't know. Daela, daughter of Daron, is also going in that tier. Maegor, son of Aerion, is going to go at the bottom of good tier, because I feel bad that he vanished from the historical record. He probably wouldn't have been mad. He also was definitely young Griff's ancestor at one point in the story, but yeah, you gotta give him that. Duncan the Small I like quite a bit. He's very different for a Targaryen. He runs off and marries Jenny of Old Stones because he's in love with her, and it's pretty great. He's named after Duncan the Tall, and Duncan the Small is a pretty great nickname, and I think he's pretty cool. I hope to get to know him more in the later Dunk and Egg books, should they ever be published, which, God, I hope Winds comes out first. Jaehaerys II is going to go in meh. He doesn't do a bunch. He's the king during the Fifth Blackfyre Rebellion, but that's about it. The War of the Ninepenny Kings. His queen is going to go next to him, who's right here. And then continuing here, we have Daeron, who we don't really know a ton about. I think he was gay, if I recall. That's, I think, all I can remember about him. But that, I don't know. I still didn't dislike his presence in Fire and Blood. Not Fire and Blood. World of Ice and Fire. He's going to go in good. He's going to go above the baby, because he's not a baby. I think this is another ancient Targaryen. I do like that name, Alix. That's interesting. Rhael Targaryen is up next. That is, I believe, another daughter of Aegon V. She marries into the Baratheon line, and I'm putting her in good for being the ancestor to all of those characters that I like so much. The Mad King is going to go near the bottom of disgusting tier. I think I like him slightly more than Aegon IV, because at least he tried at some point, and Aegon IV is just all around awful. Queen Rhaenyra I feel actively bad for a lot of the time, and for that she's going to get sympathy put into good. Above Aemond and all these folks. Yeah, Rhaenyra's good there. Rhaegar Targaryen, bad. He thought he was the main character. He ended up kidnapping an underage girl. Very bad overall. Not great. Not a great look. Don't like Rhaegar. Bad person. Viserys, I wish I could rate Harry Lloyd instead of Viserys. Viserys I'm also going to put in bad. Just above Aerion Brightflame, because I don't think he's that bad, but overall, not great. Daenerys Stormborn is one of the best characters in the series. She's going up probably above Maester Aemon in iconic, because you don't really get more iconic than Daenerys Targaryen. I'm really excited for her story in the books as it continues, and honestly, I've really grown an appreciation for her arc in Dance. Exception there, my cat Harry was demanding attention, and I thought he deserved it. I apologize for taking a break with only 3 left, so let's get through these 3. Lord Baelon, I believe, is another Targaryen lord from before the Conquest. The family tree isn't that extensive, but there are a lot of just, names present before Aegon. It is good that this list included them, though, so overall, good on whoever made this list. Aegon, son of Rhaegar. I'm going to treat this like it is Young Griff, and if it is Young Griff is going up here. I like Young Griff a lot. He's going to go above these folks, because he's a really interesting character, and I think he's going to end up taking the throne in the Winds of Winter, even if he's not truly Aegon, son of Rhaegar. Additionally, we have Rhaenys, who is going to go, I'd say, at the top of good tier, because she's likely the adoptive grandmother of Sir Pounce, because the theory goes that it was her cat, Balerion, who ended up having a set of kittens, and in that set of kittens is the one and only Sir Pounce, as there is this large black tomcat named Balerion who's still around the Red Keep, who torments Tommen and others, but people think that he's the last vestige of the Targaryen dynasty, hence his name, Balerion, as Rhaenys is said to have a cat early on in her life, and there's no mention of the cat when her and her family are massacred during the sack of King's Landing. Let's go over the list a little bit. Let's see if I disagree with my past self at all before I wrap up for the day. The bad and disgusting tiers are less crowded than I expected that they would be. Overall, I like most Targaryens, I'd say. Or at least meh them. And good Queen Alysanne Viserys, this is a tie. Visually, I'm just putting her above. It's alphabetical order, is what I'm going to say. This is a tie between Alysanne and Viserys II, because they're both excellent characters, and they're both among my favorite characters from the Targaryen dynasty as a whole. So yeah, if you enjoyed this video, be sure to leave a like and subscribe. There will be more videos coming in the near future. I'm tending towards weekday videos, but this one was probably going to be released on a Sunday, mostly because I just wanted to test out my microphone and see how things worked. And yeah, I thank you very much for watching. Subscribe, leave a like. Who's your favorite Targaryen in the comments below? I'd love to hear from you, and I'm excited to make more videos for you all in the future. I will see you soon.